Hello, once again, welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I thought that today I would talk about taking care of the recorder-like instruments. Once you have an instrument, it's important to take care of it and be good to it, because it will last for years and years and years if you do. As a matter of fact, I have some instruments that I have played since I was about 9 years old. One of my instruments I got when I was about 9 years old. It's an E-flat alto saxophone, and I am still playing it. But that's because I've taken good care of it. So it is important to take good care of your instruments, because they will last a lot longer if you do. And why spend extra money if you don't have to in terms of repair? So I'm working basically with the C melody recorders. Other instruments will be taken care of in basically the same way. First of all, when you buy an instrument, if you're not used to it, if you don't know anything about music, bring somebody with you that knows what they're doing. They can help you pick out an instrument. I have been known to go into a music store and play every used flute that the store has so that I can pick out the best instrument for my beginning flute students, so they will have the best instrument available. I will know immediately when I start to play it how good it is if it has problems, but the students, of course, will not. I had one student playing the saxophone, and he got a brand new saxophone. His parents bought a wonderful brand. It would only play 3 notes. And he thought something was wrong with him, and he says, "Miss Rainey, I just don't know what to do. I can only play 3 notes." And he was capable of doing a lot more than that. So I took the instrument to check it, and I could only play 3 notes. He had to swap that saxophone in 3 times before he actually got one that works. So you need to have somebody to help you pick out an instrument if you're not used to it. Once you get it back and you start playing it, I'll give you some suggestions as to when to play it. You need to play it in room temperature. It is not good for an instrument to be out in the cold or in the heat. And it always used to bother me, because I used to march in marching bands, and I played the saxophone and clarinet in those bands. And from November through Christmas, when you get into the November Thanksgiving parades, Christmas parades, and also the halftime shows of football games, some of those halftime shows which I arranged myself, the instruments could be so cold because the weather's so bad that you actually can freeze them and the keys don't move. And we've had times when, if I was playing a saxophone, I could only play 3 notes on the saxophone because the rest of the instrument was frozen. That is so bad for an instrument. And as a teenager, I used to ask the question, why bring the instruments out into that kind of a circumstance? Because it's just not good for them. Also, excessive heat is not good for them. So it's not good to have anything except room tepid kind of temperatures. After you play the instrument, it's important to clean it. So supposing that you've played it, you need to clean it out. And most instruments will come with a cleaning rod. It's basically a piece of plastic, a fairly long one, and some kind of a hole in it, and you take a piece of cloth, not a big one, but a piece of cloth, and you put it in. And what I've done with one of them here is I just put a piece of tissue in it, because I don't use cleaning rods, I use something else. But this gives you an idea of what it looks like, and then you just go up and down the instrument, and you can check it, and you can clean it. Now, it's important that the cloth is not very big. You don't want it to get stuck in there, and some people can get things stuck in an instrument. It's really difficult to get something out, and you can damage the instrument. What I prefer to use is a swab. The swabs are soft. They're gentler, I think, than the cleaning rods, which you may gouge out part of the side of the instrument. They come in different sizes, and you need a fairly small one for a recorder. You're going to stick it in, and it's going to, this probably is a little too big for this, but I can get it in and out, and it takes all the extra moisture out. It's wise to clean it every time you play to help the instrument to dry, and that's especially important for flutes, clarinets, saxophones, oboes, bassoons, the other woodwind instruments, because moisture gets on their pads and then after a while the pads start to disintegrate and you have to have a whole instrument repadded. The pads will last a lot longer if they're kept dry, and you can do that with a swab, so that's what I suggest. For the clarinet, I actually have a little weight attached to a long string, attached to a piece of cloth. I put the weight down the instrument because it's weighted so it goes down easily, and just pull it through. And that's the way I do it for clarinets, but I don't have a clarinet here to show you. I'm going to use this instrument now. Most recorders split into 3 parts. You have the head joint, you have the body, and you have the foot joint. So let me take this one apart. Now, some recorders are one-piece instruments and they do not split apart. For example, this one here, it's beautiful to look at, it's very inexpensive, you cannot pull it apart. You can use a very, very tiny swab. The hole in the bottom by the bell is very, very tiny, but you can't pull it apart to clean it. So that's a problem that some of the less expensive ones have. Some of them look like they should be able to pull them apart, such as this one. This one will not pull apart. Looks like a recorder, plays like a recorder, has a tone hole in the back, but you cannot pull it apart to clean it. The better instruments you can pull apart, and when you have swabbed it out, the other thing that you want to do is to use some cork grease, or Vaseline will work if you don't have cork grease, and a lot of instruments will come with a little bit of what they call recorder grease. As you can see, it almost looks like lip gloss or something. And as I said, you can use Vaseline if you don't have it. You just take a little bit of it and you cover the joints of the instrument. Never in the inside, only on the outside. And the reason you do that is that you make it a lot easier for the instrument to go back together. It's now greased. It was a lot easier to put back on than it was to take off. Let me do it for the top joint as well. Just a little bit, not much. And then it goes on fairly easily. And you line up the holes, and there it is. You're ready to go again. You have cleaned the inside of the instrument and you have greased it. You might not need to grease it every time. And remember, only on the outside of the joint, not on the inside, because you do not want to get anything in the instrument that's going to block the air path. It's also very important that you take good care of the head joint. This head joint is where the music is made. And this part of it is called the windway. It's where the music is made. And I'm going to, at some point, get into the physics of sound and how that works. But for today, I'm not going to get into it. But it is the windway. You can take a small bit of alcohol and you can rub around the mouthpiece or the mouth area of this instrument. Don't get anything in the inside of it, but just gently rub around to disinfect it. And you can do that every time you play. So that's not a problem, and you can take care of it that way. You need to be careful that you don't get anything in the inside that shouldn't be there. And I would suggest that you don't let anybody borrow your instruments. The reason being is that it's a matter of sanitation. These instruments go into your mouth. And if it's a flute that you have or a fife that you have, it goes up to your mouth, so you're breathing into it. Either way, it's a sanitation thing. I have a strict rule. I never allow anyone to borrow my instruments. The only time I ever allow anyone to borrow an instrument is when for a special circumstance, I was doing a concert and I had a student that was supposed to play and something happened to her flute and she could not play. I was right there. So I said, why don't you use my instrument? I happen to have a recorder with me, and as I said before, the beauty of the C Melody recorders is that they will play easily with any C instruments. The flute is in the key of C. She played my instrument, and I accompanied her on the recorder. Now, why would I accompany a student doing a solo? I find that with younger students, there's nothing worse than getting up in front of an audience and being terrified. You do not want to teach kids how to be afraid. You want music to be natural. And if I'm standing with them, they have the security of knowing I'm there. I can take over for them if they get lost. I can point out things, and I can play with them, and they're just much more comfortable. And then gradually we get them to the point where they play by themselves with an accompanist, and I don't have to stand with them. But on an occasional basis, I will allow, under a special circumstance, for a student to use one of my instruments. But likewise, I don't use their instruments either. The only time I play a student's instrument is if I need to check it out to make sure that it's all right. If they're having trouble playing certain notes, I want to check it and make sure there's nothing wrong with the instrument. Is it them or the instrument? And so I do it for that basis. Also to see how hard it is to play, if it takes air easily, or do they have to really pump up the old air to get it going. So on an occasional basis, I will check a student's instrument, but I don't, on a normal course of action, play my students' instruments. Okay, so you have this done. Other suggestions, it's very simple to take care of. Don't leave them in the heat. Don't leave them in a windowsill where there's hot sun coming in. Keep them in room temperature. It's wise also to keep them in their cases. Most instruments come with a case and a cleaning rod. They don't send you the cloth for the cleaning rod. You can cut up a washcloth or some kind of cloth that is absorbent. But they will have a little ridge in the case where they put the cleaning rod. As I say, I think the swabs are much better. If you put them in the case is specially fitted for the instrument. So if somebody goes by a table and knocks something over and the instrument goes flying, it's a lot less apt to become injured or damaged if it's in its case. I saw a person do a saxophone, or it was a clarinet solo, and they had a little stool, just a little stool, and they balanced the whole instrument, the whole clarinet on that stool. And I thought to myself, what if somebody walks by and they're not aware that that clarinet is there, they're looking somewhere else, How many times do you walk across the hall and you're not looking where you're going, you're looking somewhere else? That could get knocked off and that could get very badly damaged. So best to keep them in their cases if they're not being used, or if you have a larger table like this, it's all right to place them on a table as long as you're sure that they're not going to get damaged, but the case is always the best. Other things to remember, these instruments are delicate. They're not toys. You have to be careful of them. And you have to clean them regularly, but you have to clean them gently. Never use alcohol on a wooden instrument because it'll split the wood and then you won't be able to play. Just never do that. In fact, on a wooden instrument, I don't even like to use mild soap. You can use mild soap, very mild, nothing caustic. Never use anything that's caustic on an instrument. But you can use a mild soap in water, warm water, very gentle slope, and just kind of wipe around it a little. Since it's wood, it really can't take anything else. This is one of the reasons that I suggest that students, when they're buying instruments, don't buy wooden ones, buy the plastic ones. They're good tone, they last for a long time, they're easier to clean. The wooden ones are sensitive, the wooden ones are delicate, they do have a nice tone. There are people who buy flutes, and they buy wooden flutes because of the softness of the tone, and they're very, very expensive, but the plastics are fine. Some of these instruments, like this one, whoops, what I'm saying is it should not roll off the table. But anyway, some of these instruments are just one piece, and you can't do much in terms of cleaning the one piece. Even this one here, you can use a mild soap and water for it. You can use an alcohol around the top, but that's all that you can use. So it's important that you not allow your instruments out for people to use because you don't know how they're going to treat them. I had a student once, he was small, and I was with a group of children. It was a classroom situation. He took an alto recorder of mine. He wanted to look at it. I didn't think much of it. He took an alto recorders. They're about this big. I had one in before. And he looked at it. He went over to a table and he whacked the table with it. Needless to say, I was seeing red. So, but you can't do anything. I talked to him and I said, never, never, never again touch one of my instruments, because you don't know, if you're letting somebody borrow an instrument, you don't know how they're going to be treated, and you don't know what they're going to do with them. You don't know where they're going to be left. You may even go in a pot of water, you know. I knew a saxophone player who decided she was going to clean her saxophone. She would fill a tub with hot water and soap, like laundry soap or dishwashing liquid. She'd get it all sudsy, and she would put her saxophone in it and scrub it. The worst thing in the world that you can do for an instrument is let it go into water. You've got all of the pads are absorbing the water. They don't fit right after that. The reed's no good after that. She was somehow able to play it, but she had a lot of lung power, and she just blatted it. So I would not recommend that you do anything with water except very mild soap, very warm water, tepid, and gently go over the mouthpiece. So that's basically how you take care of them, and stick them in their cases, and you'll be fine with that, and they will last for many, many years to come. So I don't have anything particular. I think different instruments, you need to take care of them in a different kind of way. For a saxophone, you need to have a cloth and take the reeds off the mouthpieces, and you need to wipe them all off that way, and then put them back on the instrument or put them in a special case. A lot of times the reeds come off the instruments, and you don't put the reed back on until you play again. Brass instruments, I'm not so familiar with them. I'm not sure how you clean them. But a clean instrument, one that's taken care of, will last for years to come. Now, what I'm planning to do is I want to, next time, start showing you how to play. And we've gone through some of the basics. We've gone through what the instrument looks like, what kinds of flutes there are, what kinds of simple instruments there are, their strengths, their weaknesses. Now it's actually time to pick up an instrument and play it. And I will be showing you how to do that. How to read music. I'll go into such things as how to conduct, and even how to manage stage fright. What do you do if you're frightened and you get in front of an audience and you're just frightened to death? I am going to tell you this story because we have time for it, and I think it's kind of fun. I was at a concert of the Boston Pops. Arthur Fiedler was the conductor, and that was, of course, a few years ago, many years ago, but he was a great conductor of the Boston Pops. And he had a young man on, I would say in his 20s, and he was going to play a difficult trumpet solo. He got up there and he was so frightened. His body was shaking, you could see it. And his face looked like he was terrified. Now, it is very, very uncomfortable for an audience to watch a performer playing that you know is scared to death. It's not much fun. But he was so frightened, and Arthur Fiedler did something. I've never seen him do it before or after. He took his left hand and he put it on the young man's shoulder and held it there. He actually gripped the trumpet player's shoulder with his hand like this. So he conducted with one hand and held the shoulder of the person that was playing with the other hand. And that hand continued to rest on the trumpet player's shoulder for as long as he played. And he was just trying to calm him down. And I really respected him for doing that, because some people get very, very nervous when they appear before the public. There are ways of managing that, and I'm going to take some special segments to go into stage fright and what you can do about it. Also, I want you to have, I have time for this. I got my first question on the show. I got the first question I've had, and it's a fun question, so I want to tell you what the question is. I'm not going to give you the answer, but you can be thinking about it because it's something I think that will interest you. A man in my apartment building asked me this. He said, Pat, since you play so many instruments, do you ever do a solo, and when you're doing the solo, do you forget what instrument you're playing? Now stop to think about it. It opens up all kinds of vistas. When you concentrate, and you concentrate on music, can you lose sight of what you're playing? Or let me give you a partial answer. I did answer his question with him, but I'm going to make you wait until next time. Has a surgeon ever operated on the wrong body part? You know, sometimes a surgeon will go in and he's supposed to amputate a toe, only he gets the toe amputated and realizes that it was on the wrong foot. That happens. As a matter of fact, it happens so much that the doctors now mark the body part that they're supposed to be operating on, so they won't be operating on the wrong side of the body. But this question that he asked opens the vistas of how do you concentrate? What happens to your mind when you concentrate? When you concentrate, can you lose your sense of what's around you? Have you ever started reading a book, doing craft work or something like that, and looked at your watch and say, where did the time go? The time just flew. Where did it go? You lost your sense of time. You lost your sense of space because you were concentrating so much on what you were doing that nothing else, everything else kind of faded away and nothing else mattered. So keep the question in mind. Can you play a solo on an instrument? And if you play a lot of instruments, can you momentarily forget what instrument that you're playing? We'll answer that next time. Thank you for watching. Please join me again.